He just sent a serious message as William Nylander has emerged as the Leafs' best player this season. And we also have some shocking comments from Craig Berube on Nylander that we're going to break down on this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 72% of you who watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with all the major storylines and everything that's happening in the NHL heading into this year's trade deadline and the playoffs, it's free. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, KC, one crazy storyline that's almost flying under the radar because he plays for the Leafs this year is William Nylander and his play, and the fact that he has emerged, at least I believe, as the Leafs' best player. And a lot of people are going to be fired up at that, but we'll get into it. But what are you seeing from William Nylander so far this year? I mean, he's putting up incredible points, plays this season. He is second in the NHL with 33 goals after his hat trick on Tuesday night against the Calgary Flames. He's only 4 goals behind Draisaitl for the league lead. I don't know if anyone actually expected this from Nylander. He had a great season last year, right? 40 goals, fantastic. But I don't know if anyone expected him to almost be leading the league in goals this season.
Yeah, no, I mean, one thing right off the bat that just came to my mind is he's the only one out of the big three that hasn't missed time this season. So
Yep.
Right there, William Nylander is got that Iron Man mentality, I guess you could say. I think William Nylander this season, his shot just continues to get better every season. It just doesn't make sense how this guy's shot improves season to season as much as it did. And he just got his second career hat trick the other night. I mean, what was it, 8 years to the day, which is a crazy stat line in general. But William Nylander has always been Mr. Consistent for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Whether it comes regular season, whether it comes in the playoffs, you know you can rely on William Nylander. And that is why he is the Leafs' best player, because you can rely on him almost every night to get you a point, to get you a goal, whether it's in crunch time, whether it's in the games that don't really matter. William Nylander is going to show up to play, and that's what the Toronto Maple Leafs need. They need players that are going to show up to play when it matters the least and when it matters the most, and that's what William Nylander brings to the table. And Darius, the season he's having right now, I would even go as far as saying he could win top goal scorer at the Four Nations Cup for Team Sweden.
I don't think that's a long shot of prediction, honestly. I think he's having an incredible season. Leon Draisaitl, not there, right? And I mean, like, when you look at other guys like Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, they don't stand out as goal scorers. Maybe it's Austin Matthews, right, now that he's healthy. Maybe. But I think Nylander, he's feeling it right now. Like, no other guy in the league has as many breakaways as this guy, breakaway goals. He switches up his shot every single time. He had a 3-on-1 the other night. One of the goals he had in his hat-trick performance was a 3-on-1 that he turned into a 1-on-1 because he said, I got this, and scored. Like, that is some rock star stuff right there. He's having a crazy season. As you can see here from this Twitter user, William Nylander is such an elite hockey player that he doesn't get enough individual credit for his game, or recognition for his game, I should say, because he's on a team with 3 other guys that are unbelievable in their own right? But like you mentioned, I love that. I think the Leafs' biggest problem has been not only consistency, but consistency from their top players. And this is one guy who's always been consistent. Playoffs, regular season, what have you. And I want to get into this quote from from Steven Lorentz on William Nylander, a new teammate, a guy who's won the Stanley Cup. And he says, he's truly unique. I don't know what the right word is. He's mysterious almost. He's just a guy who always kind of surprises you. You know what you're getting from him, but he's still unique in that way. I don't know whether it's his outfits, the plays that he makes, or the fact that he's always in a good mood. And I think that's, a great quote from a guy who's won the Stanley Cup. And also, he's been consistent. That was another thing I wanted to get back to is, in the playoffs, I believe, and Casey, I don't know how you feel about this, and let us know in the comments how you feel about this, but in the playoffs, I feel like, yes, point production absolutely matters, but I feel like the playoffs are more about moments, right? Do you block a big shot in a crucial moment? Did you score a goal in a crucial moment? Did you lay a hit that led to a goal? Moments, not necessarily point production. So when you look at the Leafs' point production over the last couple of years, excuse me, especially Nylander in the playoffs just 2 seasons ago, 10 points in 11 games. He's been very consistent. He's a guy that I can remember moments from. In the series against the Montreal Canadiens, Matthews, Marner, they go away. Nylander was still there scoring goals. I can remember that. Against Tampa Bay, Matthews, Marner, they go away. The first time, I should say, Nylander was there. The second time against Tampa, Nylander was there, but the guys actually came to play. They won a round, right? He's been there every single time. Against Boston last year, he missed some games. He was still putting in the work when he came back from whatever he was dealing with last year, the migraines, what have you. He scored the goal in game 6. He scored the goal in game 7, both goals in game 6, actually. So he's been Mr. Consistent for this team. I think that he's the most consistent player. And do you think, Casey, I'll throw it back to you, that, in terms of regular season, we know what he can do in the playoffs. We've seen it time and time again. I expect it from him this season again. Do you think he can win the Rocket this year?
I definitely think he can make a case for it. If he continues on the pace he is right now, it's going to be very close going into the end of the season. And wouldn't that just be music to Leafs fans' ears for William Nylander to win the Rocket this year? I think it's possible. Like I said, his shot just keeps getting better. He just finds opportunities in games, like you said, to create moments, whether it's goal scoring chances, whether it's putting it in the back of the net. This guy is all over it come the offensive zone. And I know a lot of people back in the day when William Nylander first started were criticizing him for not getting into the corners, and this is something that he's involved into his game and has led to him to be a better player. And it's not just the stuff he does on the ice, Darius. It's the stuff like we seen in the playoffs on the bench when, Marner was whining. We see him kind of speak up and say, get your head in the game here, like Troy Bolton for, the Wildcats here in High School Musical. But I think that William Nylander is not just a great player on the ice. He is a leader off the ice. And Darius, I know we've talked in personal conversations about how I feel about Matthews with the C on his chest. I think Nylander deserves it over Matthews. I'm just going to throw it back to you and see what you think of that.
I don't know about the C over Matthews, but I will say it's always been shocking to me that Nylander does not wear a letter for this team, because he's clearly a leader. You saw it in the Amazon documentary, and if you're a Leafs fan, you've been watching this guy for years at this point, and you can see it before faceoffs. He's directing traffic. He's the guy that's really, this is what I have in mind. Let's try this play. And on the bench, this is the type of player that you need on your team. We saw the clip in the Amazon documentary. Marner was complaining. He kept looking at the refs that game. It was very evident if you watch that game. I believe it was game 3 or 4 in the playoffs last year. And Nylander said, shut up. Just get to playing. Put your head down and get to playing. And that's what champions do. That's what winners do. We've seen it time and time again. Guys like Matthew Tkachuk. Doesn't matter how hurt you are or what's going against you. Put your head down, get back to work. And that's the attitude he has. And I love that, right? And one thing in terms of, his coach, he has a new coach this year, and a lot of people are like, how is this new coach going to come in, the dynamic of it? And there's a quote from Craig Berube that came out just a little while ago, just a couple weeks ago, that I absolutely love about William Nylander. And he said, I'm not trying to figure him out. I'm trying to hear him out, because Nylander is an interesting cat, right? We know that from the last couple of years. There's been coaches saying, he's a very interesting player. A lot of analysts have that to say about him. People who are connected to the game, like he's just a weird guy. Maybe he goes about his business differently than other people, right? But I like the fact that I felt like in past eras with Babcock and Keefe, to a degree, it was like we're trying to figure him out. Right? Like, get on our side, do what we want you to do. And Berube's more like, I want to hear him out. I want to hear his ideas and see how we can, kind of mesh that into the game. So, Casey, what do you think about that? Because I thought, coming to the season, how is that dynamic going to play out? And it looks like Craig Berube is working with him, and it's working. He's having his best season to date by a lot.
Yeah, and that's a perfect quote. I love hearing that from the head coaches. I'm not trying to get him to come into my system. I'm trying to hear him out, and I'm trying to let him do what he wants to do, but still keep the reins on him a little bit so that he does fit into the system. But like you said, it has worked. He has heard him out. He said Nylander comes with him with these ideas of maybe how he wants to run certain plays or draw things up that sets him up or frees him up to get into those opportunities. And we've seen that from him this year. And I think, like you said, that is the biggest change that the Toronto Maple Leafs have made this year. Isn't a trade, isn't a signing. It is bringing in Craig Berube, a guy who is hearing the players out, especially William Nylander, the best player on the team this year, has led to his success, has led to the team's success, and hopefully, Darius, leads to some playoff success.
Yeah, and I think that, at times with Sheldon Keefe, William Nylander was benched, and I think, we've seen less of that this year and more of, some responsibility and, accountability put on the shoulders of the guys wearing the letters, and then Berube saying, I want to hear out this guy. I want to hear out William Nylander, see the ideas he has. And the last thing I'll mention before we wrap up here, Casey, is William Nylander. He has 55 points so far this year in 53 games. Electric season. He's probably going to score 50 goals at this point. An interesting stat, the Leafs have had multiple 50-goal scorers. Austin Matthews twice, of course. Rick Vaive back in the day, but they've never had, especially in back-to-back seasons, back-to-back 50-goal scorers from different players. So that's going to be something to look towards this season for the Leafs. A pretty interesting stat and something cool for Leaf fans there, because they haven't had any of that for a long time until this era. So it's going to be interesting. But let us know in the comments what you think of William Nylander, his season, what he can do in the Four Nations face-off. KC, maybe a hot take there with him leading the tournament. We'll see how that plays out. Should be
Let's
interesting.
start a petition to get him an A. For
yeah,
sure.
we'll start with the A on the Leafs. We'll start with that for sure. But let us know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything going on in the NHL.